Stuttering occurs in 1% of the population, roughly 70 million people worldwide. Stuttering is real. It is not just nervousness. Yet most stutterers are judged according to fictitious representations, from cartoon characters like Porky Pig to Academy Award-winning films like The King's Speech. In most cases, stuttering is considered an individual problem that limits social participation, something that is not normal, something that needs to be fixed. In the context of speech, stuttering is categorized as disfluency, marked by hesitations, prolongations, repetitions, opposed to speech fluency, or flowing speech. Yet, much of speech is disfluent. Many non-stutterers are, in fact, just as disfluent as stutterers. That something so common as stuttering is so commonly misunderstood and misrepresented is perhaps evidence of underlying expectations regarding normal communication. Speech requires a speaker and a hearer. Both are actively involved in the creation of dialogue, the interpretive context of speech. Thus, expectations of normal speech cannot be understood apart from expectations of normal hearing. Rather than focusing on the disfluency that stuttering is characterized by, this presentation will explore one question. What if stuttering is constructed? If you experience difficulty to understanding this talk due to my stutter, I ask you to imagine that this is not a problem of speaking, but a problem of hearing. Samuel Beckett's Not I is a 12-minute play notorious for the challenge it poses to both actor and listener. The play features one character, Mouth. A disembodied mouth hovering above the stage. Throughout the performance, Mouth speaks an incomprehensible monologue in the third person. When I saw a production of Not I last year performed by Lisa Dewan at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, the theater space was completely darkened. Something like this, but without this light on. In darkness, the distinction between stage and seating break down, causing us to experience the play from the midst of the performance. If we listen carefully, we will hear that Mouth tells the story of a woman without the ability to speak, who has experienced life in near silence. She is suddenly hijacked by a voice from within that begins to tell her story. Mouth in the audience become aware of her consciousness through this voice. The play ends as mysteriously as it begins, with Mouth fading out in a breathless frenzy. If the play is about something, it is betweenness, between self and voice, speaker and hearer. During the performance, Dewan stands behind the stage. Her head is strapped in so that just her mouth may be lit by the play's single spotlight. Behind the wall, her arms are pinioned through a bar, allowing her to perform mouth's verboseness without moving her head away from the hole cut in the back of the stage. She speaks at the speed of thought. Unable to hear or see, her body is completely outside of the performance. Her mouth becomes a third party that neither she nor we can comprehend, and her voice becomes uncontainable and unyielding. The following was taken from a televised version performed by Billy Whitelaw in 1973.
Out into this world, tiny little thing before its time in a what? Girl, yes, tiny little girl, out into this, before her time, godforsaken hole, called, no matter.
As you can see, mouth is remarkably difficult to understand. Mouth's first line, out into this world, is performative. In saying out, mouth becomes verbally present, while also describing the act of speech itself. Out because we can hear it, this world being the world of the theater. Whether or not we understand what she is saying or why she is saying it, one thing is clear. Voice that was once internal is made external, and in the process transformed into something different than the self. To voice entirely its own. Stutterers are familiar with this imperative. We are often told to spit it out when we do not speak as quickly as some demand. Curiously, it is unclear to whom the impatient party is imploring, the stutterer or the stutter. As with mouth and her voice, the stutter and the stutter are separated. Taken out of its verbal context, the stutter is understood to be an internal force that impedes the stutterer from expressing their true external voice. Additionally, they are also conflated. For example, the fact that we are even called stutterers suggests that the quality of our speech becomes a marker of identity. This paradoxical understanding of stuttering causes stutterers to objectify their own voice, turning the stutter into something that is once necessarily personal and threateningly foreign. Needless to say, there is something very unnerving about mouth's speech, and the removal of this face, which mouth belongs to, amplifies the strangeness of her voice. It is not simply that mouth is just a mouth, but that it is disembodied, floating in space. This is absurd. Yet to me, this absurdity is strangely familiar. For many stutterers, stuttering feels like something that happens to us, not something that we do. The mouth becomes a clumsy negotiator between an unwilling voice and an impatient hearer. That the mouth could come to represent one's identity through the voice, it is also absurd. The play visualizes the conflict between identity and voice that troubles so many stutterers, and paradoxically, mouth performs the situation of stuttering with the voice of a fluent speaker. In fact, mouth's speech is so fluent it is nearly indiscernible.
When suddenly, gradually, she realized, what? The buzzing, yes, all dead still before the buzzing so-called. When suddenly she realized words were what? Who? No! He!
For mouth, speech is unfamiliar. It is an expression of the distance between self and voice, though, ironically, the voice is the only means for expressing that distance. In effect, mouth performs this breakdown through the very excess of fluency, hyperfluency. I would like to return to this question I posed at the beginning to take it one step further. Speech is absurd and not I because it is incomprehensible to the audience. By placing mouth on the stage, her speech is understood to be one-sided, more akin to spectacle than real speech. Yet, speech takes two to exist. Craning in or rearing back from the disembodied mouth, we constitute the other half of her speech, and so we produce the play's conflict. The desire to make sense of mouth's speech is continually interrupted by the discomfort we feel. The position of the the position of the you guys, that's what I'm trying to say. The audience, you guys are the same as the hearer. Whew. You know, I hate that word audience. It's like, and I have it so many times in here. It's so performative, it's just like ridiculous. The difference is that we can no longer remain comfortably passive. In not I, the voice is a force distinct from the speaker, giving shape to the space between. Like mouth, we are invisible but for the mouths that betray our presence through a murmur of laughs, coughs, and whispers. The play brings us face to face with the difficulty of non-normative speech. The irony of stuttering is tragic. Stutterers, socially marginalized for their inability to speak, are observed silently by the hearer. Stuttering then becomes the verbal performance of the failure to speak. Stutterers are nothing if not fluent at stuttering. Thanks.